Okay, welcome everyone to the fourth installment here of our talks with the great Henk Kraaijenhof, sprint coach from Holland, who has been gracious enough to spend another session with us answering our questions about the way that he trained his athletes and what kind of results he saw. So, welcome, Hank. We really appreciate you joining us again, as always.
Okay.
And we have Jeff helping us out as well. Jeff, thanks for your help. Um, so we left off last time, Hank. We were talking about how you integrated plyometrics in, which is a novel idea to some people, especially in the United States, the correct implementation. And then that's not the only novel thing that you brought into the picture that was relatively unknown here in the Western world. Uh, I think about 15 years ago, I'd become familiar with a concept that you used that I found fascinating, which was whole body vibration. The concept was first introduced by the Russians probably in the 70s, I believe. And you correct me if I'm wrong on any of my facts here. And then really was picked up and really researched very deeply by Dr. Carmela Bosco, who served as a mentor to you. Can you kind of give us the background on your experience with whole body vibration? Kind of how you were introduced, and then and then how did you bring that into the picture?
Yeah. Well, we've been talking to Camilla Bosco for the longest time, and in a sense, it was interesting. The link with vibration was twofold. Number one, we were looking at microphones placed on the track in triple jump to record the sound of the landing and the takeoff. And then, of course, you see kind of vibration. We were close to Naples, the Vesuvius, the volcano, and we talked about vibration and so on. And well, there was one way that vibration comes to us through nature. Number two is a stampede. You better run if you feel the earth vibrating. There's probably a stampede coming your way, or a volcano, but it's seldom a good sign.
Right.
And then one day, he was his children, small children, two daughters, and they were a little bit noisy and everything, and they were running around and making noise. What do you do to quiet them down? Said, okay, put them in the car and drive a couple of laps. I said, yeah, right, you're right, because if you put kids in the car, they calm down. And so yes, what could it be? Could it be the sound of the engine, or the fact that they are locked up in the car, or could it be something like vibration? That the car is vibrating at a small amplitude. It must be doing something to the nervous system. That's interesting. Vibration, nervous system, and so you see his brain all of a sudden vibration, nervous system, and a couple of months later he said, Henk, I found a vibration platform, and I do some research, but the vibration platform, I'm not too happy with it. There's hardly any research on it, on the whole body vibration. It's done for osteoporotic people suffering from osteoporosis. The research has been done with rats. And the platform it's good, but isn't perfect. I want to make a perfect platform. Well, wasn't really the handyman, and building a platform himself that clearly wouldn't work. The hardware and everything and the software. So he had some people working on it and tinkered with it and gave his ideas. And I remember the first prototypes of the vertical vibration platform in his apartment in Rome, and he switched on the machine, and 3 blocks down the road, you could still feel it and hear the machine. So I don't think his neighbors would be happy with him living there. But in the end, he did a lot of work on it with accelerometry, with EMG, and then started doing testing on improvement in strength, improvement in maximum strength, improvement in explosive strength. And it became, in the end, he developed the NEMS, the neuromuscular mechanical stimulation system. And that was basically the first vertical platform that was invented. Although some people say it were the Russians in the 1970s or cosmonauts or something, as the people who were living in Star City, where the Russian cosmonauts were trained and educated and everything, and for rehab when they came back from space. And nobody has ever heard or seen a whole body vibration platform. That wasn't true. Now, vibration was already known. It was more local vibration by Professor Nazarov in the 1970s. And it was the first well-documented and properly used for performance enhancement in sports. But there was local vibration, which is a different application of vibration. And we're talking whole body vibration, so your whole body shakes from head to toe. And we found it very interesting, and we wanted to use it to increase explosive strength. Because basically what happens, the acceleration is this, like you can compare it to jumping over a hurdle, like plyometrics. That's the impact on the nervous system. Now, you can be very strong and very adaptive, but if you vibrate with 30 hertz, and you do this for 1 minute, then basically the training effect you're getting is jumping over 1,800 hurdles. Do this for 10 minutes and you'll be jumping 18,000 hurdles. It's not that you feel it, you feel no pain, you feel no fatigue, but this is the stimulus your nervous system is exposed to. So in the end, that explains the tremendous effect on explosive strength, because that is what you do.
So with that being the case, and as you know, whole body vibration got a lot of exposure, probably starting about 10 years ago in the United States, and upcropped, many different companies who are making whole body vibration platforms.
Yeah.
And I know your experience with that, of testing those. And would you share that with us so that we can get that out of the way? You looked at a lot of different platforms that were being sold in the West. What did you find?
It is basically simple, but it isn't that simple to make a good platform, because it depends on a couple of things. It depends on the force coming from the platform, coming up, generating force. You can even sit on your laundromat or on your washing machine or on your, how do you call it, centrifuge, you call it, to dry the clothing. That also vibrates, but just not strong enough to make your muscles contract. So the best way to see if your vibration platform works is put EMG on there. It's a very simple electrode, a very simple EMG system. And if you're standing on the platform and the platform is not switched on, you're standing there in a squat position, and then you see a little bit of EMG activity because your muscles work isometrically. So you're standing in this 90 or 100 degree angle on the platform, it isn't switched on, then you see a little bit of muscle activity. So 10 to 15% of the maximum voluntary isometric contraction, and not very much. And then you switch on the machine. And then you should see a much higher EMG activity. That's the extra effect of vibration. If you don't, if you see very little effect, then the machine is just not working. And it's the perfect combination of the frequency, of the amplitude, and of the forces, the G forces generated by the machine. And if one of those three is off, then you don't get a proper EMG response. Now, just for fun, I wanted to. We started this as a basic feature to see if and why whole body vibration would work. So we use EMG all the time. But many people jump the bandwagon of vibration, want to make a fast buck, made a platform, put an engine on there, and then put some switch on there and said, oh, this vibration, you become a bodybuilder from this, you get muscles like crazy, and you lose weight, and you don't have no sweat. Well, if it sounds too good to be true, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And that was the case. So for fun, I went to the Medica, which is the biggest medical exposition probably in the world, I think, in Düsseldorf. And it's also for physical therapy. And everybody tried to sell a platform there. So what I did was standing on each platform, pushing the button for 30 hertz, so the frequency was all the same, put an EMG electrode telemetrically on my versus lateralis, walked around, had a little sender, and 100 meters further down the road, there was somebody with my laptop and a receiver, so you could see in 100 meters down the road what my EMG response was, standing on the machine and pushing the button for 30 hertz. That's the only parameter you can change in the first place, having a machine. And it was interesting to see that 8 out of 10 machines didn't do anything. So that was a kind of shocking to see that the general public or the buyers of vibration machine were, well, cheated from here to eternity. They pay a lot of money for a machine that doesn't even work, because if you don't get an EMG response, it means your muscles don't recruit muscle fibers. Then, well, why not sit on your laundromat? You know, it's cheaper, it does your laundry, and you get a funny feeling when doing that, and you get the same effect. That is none. So that was basically the story of vibration, and it went on and on and on and on. It ended up as a story of fraud and lies. That's why it came down. There were too many promises and too little promises were fulfilled through vibration machine. The claims were just outrageous and just not true, because in the first place the machine didn't work at all. So sad enough for us, because we still love to use vibration. There's some very good cases in which it works very good for explosive strength, against osteoporosis, for increased local circulation in the lower limbs for people with problems there. Excellent, excellent, excellent. But you don't lose weight like crazy, nor do you become don't you get a lot of hypertrophy in muscle. That's just a lie.
So, I think this is one of the reasons why it kind of fell out of favor very quickly in the United States, because it didn't work. The machines that they were using, none of which, if I understand correctly, none of which were ever the Nemesis. I don't think any of those were ever sold in the United States, to my knowledge. If they were, that was minimal.
I know. Elver May used to have one. Elver May of the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, with Alver Meal. Yeah, okay.
Chicago Bulls and San Francisco 49ers. He had the first job, but he was very close to Camilo Bosco as well, one of the few American coaches. So Elver May used to have one. That's at least the one I know, because I went with Camilo Bosco to Chicago to go there.
So and so now we know that obviously most of the other organizations didn't have one, or a Galileo. There was more people maybe that had the Galileo, the Vibraflex from Optometrics, which was not quite as effective, but was effective in the results that you tested, I think. The only other one that was effective is not even in business anymore, if I understood you correctly.
The Galileo and the Nemesis, those were the first. But let's face it, if you go and open your fridge and grab a cola, which one is it? Pepsi or Coca-Cola? They are the oldest ones. I mean, there's new cola is coming up every 5 years. There's Virgin Cola, there's whatever colas. But it's the two oldest, and the same thing applied to the Nemesis and to the Galileo. They were the oldest systems, and they weren't made as copycats. They were made as the original machines with lots of research to back it up, and the other were not even trying measuring if they machine work. They're just putting a machine together that just didn't work, just for the money, that's all. Which is no problem, but in the end, it's good that people know they have a choice between a machine that works and a machine that doesn't. Right.
Now, having established credibility and kind of what different things the whole body vibration has done, how did you integrate that into your training system? So I guess the main question is, was there particular stages of the year where it was integrated, and then how did you integrate it within the work week? Like within a weekly training cycle. How did you use it?
Well, it's a perfect tool, complementary to normal strength training, and also to normal flexibility training. So the first thing we use it as an experiment. Just add it to the normal training. So we do normal training like always, and on top of that, before the training, we do vibration. And in the time we didn't know much, we tried 10 times 1 minute with 1 minute rest. Why not? Nice numbers, isn't it? We didn't do 13 times with 7 seconds, with 23 seconds of rest. No, 10, 1, 1. Easiest protocol. We thought, could we get the same results by doing less? Yeah, and I went back to 3, 4, 5 minutes with 1 minute of 1 minute vibration with 1 minute rest. Gave us exactly the same result. So it saved us 5 minutes in time, and probably trouble in the long term. And so we used it as a kind of a warming up before weights, warming up before explosive work, because I work with sprinters. So it's not warming up before stepping on a bike and riding 200 miles or something, because that just doesn't work. We went even this far that we used it as a warming up only. So no jogging, no stretching. And I have a witness, a very good witness. She's still on TV on BBC. She is an Olympic champion in the heptathlon. Denise Lewis from Great Britain. She was training on the same track. We met in the gym. Said, "Oh, you guys going to train later on? I'll see you guys." "Yeah, we're going to train later on." Well, the guys went on the platform, did 5 times 1 minute vibration, and then walked to the track, put on their spikes, and then they run 60 meters full speed, 5 times full speed. While the knees were still warming up, jogging and stretching. Said, "You guys don't need to jog and stretch." And he goes, No. We did vibration, It recruited muscle fibers, so you want to warm up the muscles, as a matter of fact, or use the muscles and teach them, "Hey guys, wake up." And you want to increase circulation. That's why you jog. Well, yeah. Vibration was 2 for the price of 1, and I never saw an injury doing that. I wouldn't do that to everyone or advise it to anyone. It was just an experiment to see if that could be done. If you could get a proper warm-up, and the times were just very, very good. So that's the only time we replaced a proper normal warming up by vibration. Otherwise, it was just complementary to a normal training session. Now, it could also be used as a cooling down. Why? Because you increase the circulation, especially in the lower legs, to I say flush out the breakdown products, but that's a kind of okay. And to increase hormonal stimulation. Now, it would not be smart to do 10 minutes before, do a normal workout, and again 10 minutes after, because you then get 20 minutes of vibration. That would be too much. Why? If you get the same effect by less, then we did half of a workout, so 3-4 minutes times 1 minute before, and probably 3-4 minutes after the workout, and that was okay. So we never replaced it by training. It was always like something else we might touch upon later. We also used it in combination with training. It never replaced training. Unless somebody was injured, of course. If you have an Achilles tendon injury, I wouldn't do any plyometrics or jumping or sprinting, but you can still maintain your neuromuscular qualities by vibration training without any injuries. As a matter of fact, it cleared up some injuries in Achilles tendons as well, because you also get an intermittent stretch of the tendon and a better circulation of the tendon as well. So that worked very well. But normally, no, just the normal weightlifting, just the normal Olympic lifts, just the normal machines or leg presses and the normal jumping whatsoever. But some people can handle more jumps than others, like we said before. Some people get injured while jumping, so then we do a decent amount of vibration to increase explosive strength instead of trying to jump more and getting injured.
So with your use of it within the workout itself would be whole body vibration was at the beginning of the workout. If it was going to be used as part of the training session, maybe 5 minutes. And as you said, you don't want to exceed 10 minutes exposure total, from what I've understood, correct?
Exactly. Because why would you? I mean, people always tend to do more, and especially when you lift weights which are way too heavy or you run distance which are way too long. Then you get punished by fatigue or by damage. But vibration doesn't punish you for your mistake. So you think in the short term, you don't feel pain, you don't get tired, so you can stand there for 2 hours on that machine vibrating. In the end, I think it's unnecessary and is not necessarily good. If you have a headache, you don't take 10 aspirins. Why would you?
Yeah.
If your headache wears off after taking 1 aspirin, don't take 10 just in case.
So the effective dose normally what you saw was about 5 1-minute sessions before the workout, and then that would proceed, like if they were going in to do jumps or plyometrics or something, it would precede that work, and then you would go through the normal workout, and you might use it at the end, as you said, to help expedite recovery and or keep the hormonal to help the hormonal profile at the end of the workout as well. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So with that being said, you kind of had a general idea there. You also, one other point I think that's important is that you also look to see what was the ideal, through the EMG, you look to see what the ideal vibration frequency was for each individual athlete, and then the machine adjusted. Now, did you ever see that change? Did anybody's ideal frequency change over time of use in training?
Yeah.
So you do kind of want to keep up with that. You don't want to just assume that it's 30 now and it's always going to be 30. It might change.
Yeah, absolutely, because your muscle and still we have no clue what the variable was in there. Was it body weight? First we thought it's body weight. We saw very heavy people have a different frequency than very light people, but then we saw the same effect with very heavy in the beginning. Heavy people, high frequency; light people, very low frequency. And then a very heavy person came in with a very low frequency, very light person with a very high frequency. So we said, okay, that's not it. We looked at the leverage. So if you have long limbs or long upper leg, or short ones, wasn't it? Muscle fiber composition in general, muscle fiber composition has something to do with it. That's for sure. Sprinters or in general have it, but it's not a very strong relationship there. So in the end, it has something to do with the whole complex of stiffness and elasticity of the muscle. You know, it's like a basketball. If you pump it up real hard, or you just let the air out, and then you have to. Well, the bouncing is different. So the vibration response to your own body's vibration frequency, and we measure that through a very simple way. Put one EMG electrode on the muscle you want to see, and all the time we wanted to see the vastus lateralis, because the vastus lateralis, that's why you take the biopsy from. And the muscle biopsy you take from a muscle which is relevant and significant for your exercise. A marathon runner you don't take a biopsy from your jaw muscle if you're a marathon runner or a sprinter. You know, it doesn't play any role in the movement you execute. But the vastus lateralis is a marker muscle, which is used in every way of propulsion. If you swim or sprint or cycle or row, it doesn't really matter, or run the stairs, the vastus lateralis is always involved. So that's a muscle in which the changes of training also are expressed. So if you do more long distance running, vastus lateralis gets slower. If you do more sprint training, vastus lateralis gets slower. The composition changes. So that's why we use the EMG on the vastus lateralis muscle. And then Carmela was smart enough to build in an automatic system in which the frequency increased every 5 seconds. So you start with 20 hertz, very slow, and then it stopped, and then immediately it shifted to 25 hertz, a little bit faster, 5 seconds, and then 30 hertz faster, and then 30, all the way up to 55 hertz. And then it stopped, and then the machine recorded and stored with which frequency you had the highest EMG output. That will say, with which frequency do your muscles work hardest? Where do you recruit most muscle fibers? And he did this research with 50 women. 50 women which went to the gym, and then he checked it after a year. So first he recorded 5 times for each woman, for 5 times what the frequency was, to see if it's stable. If the first attempt it's 20, and the next one it's 35, the next one is 55, so what is it? It changes from 1 second to another, so it can be true. Now, number one, he found out it was very stable. And number two, after 1 year of just doing fitness in the gym, which might not be a very strong stimulus after all, but you see a change. So if one lady had, let me say, 35, 1 year later, she would have 30.
Okay. So you wouldn't be checking it on a week-to-week basis. It would be more like a season-to-season basis.
In the long term, it changes over the long term. A week-to-week basis doesn't really change. It's more over the, say, depending on the training. But when you can expect training people to be more explosive or much better endurance or have a tremendous volume, then you can expect some significant changes in the optimal frequency.
Right. So you may come back the next off season and then check it again and then see if we need to make an adjustment. But other than that, it's going to be on the same frequency. Okay, now, having said that, here's the most important part as always. What were the results? What did you see? You know, what kind of changes did you see with your sprinters over the course of time?
Most of them, they were in the high range. I would say 35, 40, 45 is in the high range. And they came down 5 hertz. So I'm going to say 60% came down 5 hertz and 40%, 20% stayed the same and 20% went up 5 hertz. And still, we have no clue what it is. We don't know. Somebody has to figure it out. But that's the work of a scientist. So that's what we found. So if you start at 45, then after, let me say, 3 months, you might have 40. There's some specific adaptation to the frequency, which the mechanism and the real molecular significance escapes us until now. We don't know. In the end, it's not interesting as long as you know. For practical use, it's not interesting. It is interesting that it's not a stable factor. It changes over time.
Right. It's kind of like how a depth jump height would change over time, possibly be very individual, but also change over time. Yeah,
but also if you lose weight, if you gain 10 kilograms of muscle mass or you lose 20 kilograms of muscle mass, it also changes.
Yes.
Now, there are more factors than the real training quality. It has also something to do with muscle mass or body weight plays a role in there somehow.
Sure. So once you integrated it and you were looking for results, and you shared with us before we got started today that you had saw some good results with some of your athletes and how they improved, and then also with the some other teams. I think you had a slide that kind of showed some of that improvement with the individual.
I didn't take I have still the papers are still here around somewhere, but I have a few things that might show it. And this is the one I want to share with you. This is one athlete, the sprinter, 20.17 at 200 meters. An older chap, almost 33 years old at that moment. And you see him testing in the squat jump on the mat, a very rigid protocol, a very good protocol by Carmelo Bosco himself, the Bosco test. So you see on the left-hand side, you have 50.6 centimeters, which is 20 inches in November 97. And you see him change over the course of a year almost, October 98, to, 52.1%. And the 52.1% is for us just after the transition period. So from, let's say, September, October, you take a break. And strange enough, the best test in many cases is when you start, when your nervous system is fresh. And then you start training and your explosive strength is coming down. So, hey, coach, something wrong. I trained so hard, do lots of jumps, do lots of weights, and my explosive strength is coming down. Yeah, that's why block training is there by Verkhoshansky and Isurin. There's a delayed effect of training. The moment you stop lifting, the moment you stop jumping, the explosive strength is coming up. It's accumulative fatigue of the nervous system probably. So 52.1, that was the best one. And then we got the vibration platform in that same month. And then we decided to do vibration. And we didn't know anything. So you have to start from somewhere. We started vibration training. It's explained there, VT1, 3 weeks, 5 times a week, Monday to Friday, 10 times 1 minute vibration, 1 minute rest in between with 30 hertz. And then in February 99, a couple of months later, checked again, and then we see 54.8. And that's a very significant improvement in this short period of time. And then again, we repeated. In April 99, we did the same protocol, 3 weeks of vibration, 5 times a week, 10 times 1 minute, 1 minute rest, and 30 hertz. And you see another very, very significant improvement of explosive strength. And this is a guy who has been training for since 1988. And it's so more than 10 years. So he's an experienced athlete. It was not some rookie in which you can get great results. And in the training approach or the training system, in the contents of the training or whatever, nothing changed. Only the thing was we added vibration training in there. And we were quite lucky because as well, Carmelo and myself, we worked with 30 hertz most of the time. And some people got great results like this guy, and some people got no results at all. And then we start to think about maybe this is not the optimum frequency. So, and that's why you started to look for EMG at different frequencies, because there was a thing. Some people did great with 30 hertz and some people didn't do anything with 30 hertz. So we started to tinker with the frequency as the parameter to change for the person, right? But you see here is 6.5 centimeters, which is more than 2 inches improvement from October 98 to May 99, in which we did all the normal things like in 97. And in '98, nothing changed as far as I'm concerned. And or conceptual, nothing changed. Of course, he ran a little bit faster, but not changes in volume, no dramatic changes in there. And normally, this is we look at a 1 centimeter, which is less than half an inch improvement in explosive strength in a year. And now we're looking at 6 centimeter in 7 months, with only 6 weeks of vibration causing this tremendous change here. So this was another proof, just from a very practical point of view. The guy I coached myself on a daily basis. So there was another practical proof that vibration training increased explosive strength. Camilo Bosco's own research also showed on a larger group, and then looking at average, that it increased a lot. And we have more reports and more evaluations that it changed. And if people don't find any improvement in there, they have been working with the wrong machine, number one, a machine that doesn't do anything. They have been using the wrong protocol. That's the second one, or especially they've been using the wrong frequency. And that's what we noticed as well, because my other sprinter didn't do as well. He only did well when he was working with 45 hertz. Then he got the same kind of improvement.
Interesting. So with that being the case, you got great improvement. Now here's I guess the longer term question is, do you see, once you reach that adaptation at 58.6, do you see vibration being one? Vibration is a little different. And I want you, if you could just kind of explain this. Like some of our training there's a progressive overload kind of principle, so that if you're using a lift even at 60%, like you said, when we get to the next cycle, we're going to increase the kilograms because now that 60% has changed. Yeah. And with a depth jump, you might raise the height on the depth jump or whatever the case may be. But with vibration training, is the improvement gained in one time frame and then from there just hope to be maintained? Or is there any possibility of progressive overload in the scheme of things? And I might be using the wrong word there too, not progressive overload, but is there a way of spurring further adaptation, I guess is what I should say.
Well, we see that when jumping over 10 hurdles, just bounding over hurdles, 2 legs, take off, let me say 4 or 5 feet in between, or 6 feet in between, and then jumping. And then the impact of vibration is basically the same like jumping over a hurdle. The only thing is with 30 hertz, you're jumping over 30 hurdles per second.
Yes.
Over 1 minute, you're jumping over 1,800 hurdles, and doing this for 10 minutes, you're jumping over 18,000 hurdles. There's no need to do more, believe me.
Right.
So this stimulus the central nervous system gets, or the whole nervous system gets from vibration. It's not a very powerful stimulus, but it's repeated so often. And often or more does not necessarily translate in a better result. As a matter of fact, I brought down myself the volume to not 10 times 1 minute, but 3, 4, maximum 5 times 1 minute, and still got the same results. So because you get this, the law of diminishing returns. It's not more is better, more is better. It's not linear. It doesn't increase all the time. And especially in vibration, you need a very light stimulus. You don't feel pain. You don't get tired. So it's basically a light stimulus to digest for the athlete. And you get a tremendous result. So why do more? Why do more? You can only punish yourself in the long term.
Sure. So in the long term, like you would say, this is a part of the long-term process of the athlete, not just a one-time deal, where we used it one off season and it made a lot of sense. You would recommend using this over the course of years.
Yeah. So especially when you want to increase explosive strength. Now, I have to mention that in March '99, between those two tests, the guy improved his personal best in the 60 meters from 680 to 672. And the year before, he could barely made it to the finals in the nationals, and now became a national champion, running against the same guys more or less. So it was a tremendous improvement in speed as well, and he also broke a personal best in the 100 meters. So probably his technique didn't change that much. So I guess it was his increase in the explosive strength that was partially responsible for his increase in maximum speed and acceleration.
and what you said earlier was that the frequency could change over time from one off season to another off season. You might see a change. That gives you the idea that there's further adaptation possibilities.
Yeah.
Because the frequencies change now, so now the stimulus is different.
Yeah.
And so theoretically, you might not see the same marginal rate of improvement, but there is still more marginal improvement to be gained by the fact that you had to change the frequency.
Absolutely.
And it's actually interplaying with different training stimuluses too that are different than last year's, that they've been adjusted depending on the situation. But there's more variables in the picture. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not a classical one of increasing volume or intensity.
Right.
Because as a matter of fact, instead of 10 times 1 minute with 35 hertz, you're making 35 jumps in 1 minute, in 1 second. So if your frequency comes down to 30, then you're actually doing less instead of more.
Yes.
Because you have a lower frequency means less training stimulus in 1 minute. So basically, the only adjustment you do in most cases is doing less instead of doing more. It's not you increase the frequency to 55 hertz and basically you can see nothing happens. I'll show this picture. This is the one. You see an athlete, and in the blue arrows down, they show you the frequency, 5 seconds with 20 hertz and then with 25 hertz. And it's not, don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that for this athlete, the 25 hertz was the optimum frequency here.
Right.
And even if maybe 50 felt very exciting and you feel like your muscles feel exploding and the noise is deafening, well, too bad. It doesn't do anything for your EMG. It doesn't do anything for your muscles. Now, some people always say, well, this is an artifact. Of course, we are smarter than we look. If there's an artifact, why only at 25 hertz? Why don't find the same artifact? Why do we always find one peak and no peaks or artifacts in the rest of the program? And the other thing is, if you think it's an artifact caused by the vibration itself on the muscle, then that could be true. But then we put an electrode on your patella, on your kneecap, and well, your kneecap shakes as well, and even more. And on your kneecap, you don't see any EMG, and you don't see an artifact. So if you don't see it there, why would you see it on the muscle? Because your kneecap shakes even more than your muscle itself. So it's another way to find out with multiple electrodes that this isn't due to artifacts, believe me. Because then we wouldn't have any result. If it was only artifact, then we listened to this, oh, this is 25, this was an artifact and it should be 45. Why would we get any results in the first place?
Yeah.
So that's basically it.
It's very interesting. So basically, so that what people can take away from it is that vibration, number one, works. And it works in multiple ways. There's a lot of different benefits.
Yeah.
And lastly, it's not a one-time tool. It's a tool that can be used over the course of the athlete's career. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only things that you would rule out is the age of the athlete. You want them to be a certain age, if I remember correctly, to where they'd want exposure to this. Where does that normally start at with the younger athlete?
Well, it depends what sports you're in. If you're in a sports in which you start at a very young age in gymnastics or probably swimming, then where young kids have to be at their very best, like gymnastics is a perfect example, then you would start a little bit earlier. But my question is, why would you? Why would you play a trump card in an early age? You get older, then you reach a ceiling in strength or in speed or in anything. You can train more. Then you have to look for smart things. But the moment you cannot hold a tennis racket properly in your hands, then there's no way that you're going to be a better tennis player by vibration in the first place. So you, as coach, you always have to set up priorities and not shoot up bullets too early. In the end, you end up empty-handed because there's nothing to do anymore. So first, teach people how to lift weights and to lift weights in a proper way and technique. Learning them the effects of normal weight training, and then for older guys, and older guys doesn't necessarily mean over 30. But when you're an accomplished athlete and you're mature as an athlete, you can start about those things. But many coaches have the tendency to use very strong training tools at an age when it's completely inappropriate. You don't do any box jumping or drop jumping with 12-year-old kids.
Right.
And you don't do lift weights with 7 years old or do eccentric work or electrostimulation or all those. Let me say, strong training stimuli at an age where you can still get very good results with a very soft stimulus, because in the end you can only create damage.
Right, right.
So I would say for kids, it's not really. Kids love it, absolutely. They like to play on the vibration platform. But I would say, well, 18 to 20, depend a little bit on the sports, of course. And in case of injury, you can use it temporarily to maintain your strength and explosive strength, and to increase your circulation, to help as a therapy as well for Achilles tendons, for instance. But further than that, I wouldn't go any further. Not that even there's a risk, but there's no use.
Once the athlete's entering adulthood is kind of the area where you start to think about it, and from what I'm gathering from what you said, use it later when it's going to be more useful, where you run out of other ideas or you're getting, close to athletes. I think this is another key takeaway for everybody in general. You don't want to use all your tools that you don't need to. You save them for later when other stuff starts failing, but you wait till you run out of idea. You're starting to run out of ideas and possibilities. Then you use your secret weapon, if you will, your other tools that can give you results in spite of where the athlete's at, and that you've kind of getting closer and closer to their genetic potential maybe, and then you want to pull those out at that time.
It's very simple, Joseph, because if you use a soft stimulus, a soft training or a soft tool in the beginning, and then when you level off a hard one, that's fine. But when you use a hard tool or a very strong stimulus when you're very young, also that one will wear out in the end, and you have to look for something new. But you can't use a soft tool anymore because you already played your trump card too early. So what are you going to do then? Then you have to take a kind of a risk with the athlete's help by using training methods or training systems which are outright dangerous for their health and causing injuries and overtraining. So why would you do that?
Exactly. I think I think it was Dr. Bondarchuk that said, he said, look, if you use strong stimulus for younger athletes, he said, not only is it not going to work, he said, you're going to ruin them later. He said, because then later they won't adapt to the stronger stimulus. And he said, so you've ruined their nervous system permanently in some ways for improvement. And he said, you're not going to be able to maximize it anymore. So always err on the side of too little and instead of too much, obviously. And that's kind of a recurring theme with all the training. And it's kind of the idea here with the vibration training as well. This is fantastic information. And I think this is stuff that, people can use, people that have access to these, but to give them a more clear idea on how this works. Now, what I'd like to do, and when we get together again, because there's so much information, is talk about the difference here between whole body vibration and vibration training, which is a little bit of a different idea. It's been articulated a little bit, but to be honest, Henk, here in the West, very few people know there's a difference. And we have an upcoming book from Dr. Isurin that's going to kind of articulate some of that. And you've had a lot of experience with the difference between the two, which is even better, because I'm really anxious to hear the differences and then what kind of results you've seen and how they interplay with each other. So I'd like to get together again, if you would, and we'll talk about the vibration, the divergence between whole body and vibration training, and then how you use the vibration training as well in the preparation of your athletes.
Okay, very good.
Very, very good. Thank you very much again. As always, we really appreciate your insight. Just amazing information and very useful. I think that's the key, is everything that you've given us is stuff that can be used and not just theory to be bandied about. So thank you once again for joining us, Henk. We really appreciate it very much. And thanks, Jeff, as well, for your help. And we'll be talking to you hopefully here in the near future.